Welcome back. Today we're looking at a creative nonfiction piece, Body Composition and the Science of Healthy Aging. It uses a narrative about a family brunch to explain physiological decline.
It's a very imaginative swing, I'll give it that. And, the raw material here, the medical data, it's incredibly robust.
The research is there.
Oh, absolutely. Specific percentages for organ shrinkage, lung capacity, all of it. But the delivery mechanism? It's currently driving the car right off the road. The whole fictional frame is it's obscuring the science.
It really is. It feels like two different pieces are at war with each other. So let's jump straight into that first friction point. The big one for me is tonal consistency.
Or the lack of it.
Exactly. The juxtaposition of this high-precision medical data with slapstick humor and emojis, it completely undermines the weight of the science.
That was the very first thing that stopped me cold. You're reading a text that cites the liver decreasing by 18%, kidneys by almost 9. These are clinical, granular stats.
Right. They imply a certain seriousness.
A very serious tone. But then you have peach emojis, laughing faces, this sort of vaudevillian dialogue. Grandpa calls himself up, dried apricot, and then there's a cartoon peach right next to it.
It forces the reader to constantly switch mental gears, doesn't it?
Constantly.
One sentence is like a medical abstract, the next is like a text message. And when you put a laughing emoji next to a stat about organ atrophy, you're not making it accessible.
No, you're trivializing it. You really are. It creates this huge tone clash. The format screams casual fun, but the data is a clinical warning. And that friction, it just degrades the narrator's credibility.
Yeah, you start to question it.
You do. You think, who is this for? If I'm a caregiver looking for real info and I see emojis next to a liver stat, I might instinctively doubt that 18% figure. I'd assume the writer is just, guessing.
So the suggestion here is pretty clear. The narrative voice needs to be elevated to match the precision of the data.
Right. You can still keep the warmth. We're not asking for a dry textbook.
Of course not.
But you have to strip away the visual clutter. Lose the emojis. Lose the really theatrical stage directions. Let the facts stand on their own.
Let's get concrete. That dried apricot comment.
Okay, yeah. Grandpa in New Zealand says, so that's why I feel like a dried apricot instead of a juicy peach these days. And then you get the laughing emoji and the peach emoji.
And look, the metaphor itself. Dehydration as dried fruit, that actually works. It's visual, it's relatable.
Totally. It's the delivery that falls apart.
So the fix is what? Rewrite the reaction?
I think so. Instead of a cartoonish exclamation, you could describe a wry smile. Or a moment of, quiet realization if he just touches his arm, notes the change in his skin, and gives a dry chuckle. You keep the humanity.
You keep the metaphor.
You keep the metaphor, but you lose the slapstick. It becomes a moment of character, not caricature.
Okay, another one. The dialogue tag where Mr. America whispered about the suitcase incident?
Ah, and the almost levitating. Come on.
It's pure sitcom.
It is. It's hyperbole that distracts from the seriousness of sarcopenia. Muscle loss isn't just about, not being buff. It's about losing your ability to function in the world.
It's a huge safety issue.
A massive one. And if you just remove the whispered stage direction and frame the suitcase thing as a shared, maybe slightly awkward observation, the medical reality lands so much harder.
Right. Treating it like a physical comedy gag just cheapens the whole point.
It really does. And the same thing happens with the lung capacity section. You have this terrifying stat, lungs shrinking by almost 20%, and it's just a setup for a joke.
No wonder I run out of breath before finishing my jokes. And then a lung emoji.
Yeah. That needs a complete rewrite. Treat the 19.8% reduction seriously. You can still have him realize why he's short of breath, but make it a moment of vulnerability, not a punchline.
Okay, let's move on to the second major critique. This is about the efficacy of the narrative vehicle itself. The characters, Mr. America, Miss England, Grandpa New Zealand, they create this unnecessary cognitive load that distracts from the actual point.
I got so stuck on the names right away. As a reader, you see Mr. America with a tablet full of health data, and your brain just starts searching for the allegory.
You can't help it.
You can't. Is this a critique of the American healthcare system? Is he Big Pharma?
And Miss England, is that a nod to the NHS? Or the stiff upper lip thing? And why New Zealand for Grandpa?
Exactly, but the text never pays any of that off. The nationalities seem completely arbitrary, which means the reader is they're burning mental energy trying to decode symbols that have no meaning.
That's energy that should be spent on understanding that body fat is rising from 15 to 25%.
Right. The narrative frame is actively competing with the information instead of supporting it.
So the suggestion is to streamline the avatars a lot.
Yeah, unless the nationalities are crucial to some point about global aging, which they're not here, get rid of them. Use relatable, general archetypes, or, maybe remove the fictional frame entirely.
So how could that look? If the writer wants to keep the dialogue, maybe just give them functional names.
Or just normal names. Instead of Grandpa New Zealand, call him Robert.
That makes a huge difference.
It does. If his name is Robert, I'm thinking about his hydration levels dropping to 53%. If his name is Grandpa New Zealand, I'm thinking about hobbits. The name is triggering a totally irrelevant schema.
And Mr. America is basically just a data delivery device. He holds the tablet. Do we even need a character for that?
I'd argue no. You could just use a direct narrative voice. But, okay, if the writer is really attached to the dialogue, make the characters represent the issues.
Ooh, I like that.
Like the active ager versus the sedentary sibling.
Yes, that's a much stronger approach. If the sedentary sibling is the one struggling with the suitcase, the lesson on muscle loss becomes implicit. It's not a lecture anymore.
It's a demonstration. It makes the comparison direct and meaningful. The active brother pointing it out feels like a real family conversation. It has emotional weight.
Okay, let's pivot third block. This one's about structure. The core argument is that segregating all the lifestyle advice into a single paragraph at the end, it just dampens the immediate utility of all the warnings.
This is such a classic error in health writing. It really is. The piece follows what I'd call a bad news cascade. First, water loss, then fat gain, then organ shrinkage, then sarcopenia. It is just this relentlessly depressing list.
It just builds anxiety in the reader.
It really does. You're holding all this stress until the very last paragraph, where the writer finally dumps the good news: eat protein, drink water, you know the drill. The gap between the problem and the solution is just way too wide.
And by the time you learn about the liver shrinking, you might have already forgotten the details about the water issue from 3 paragraphs ago.
Exactly. So the suggestion is to adopt a problem-solution pairing structure. Don't make the reader wait. Integrate the specific fix immediately after you introduce the decline.
So let's walk through an example. The hydration section. It says body water drops to 53%.
Right. And then the text just moves on to body fat. But you should stop right there. Immediately say, because water drops to 53%, this is why older adults must prioritize hydration. Put the tool in the reader's hand the moment they realize they need it.
That makes so much sense. Same logic for the body fat section. It mentions the rise to 25%, but the advice on mindful eating is buried at the end.
Pull it up. Pair it directly. Body fat rises to 25%, increasing cardiometabolic risk. Therefore, this is the decade to implement mindful eating. It empowers the reader right away, instead of leaving them helpless.
It changes the whole experience from, oh God, look how I'm falling apart, to, okay, here's how I manage this specific change.
Precisely. And maybe the most critical one is the muscle loss section. The story about the suitcase is good imagery, we get it, but the solution, strength-based exercises, comes way later.
That is the perfect moment to sell it.
It's the perfect moment. Right after describing the struggle with the suitcase, the text should say, this is why strength training isn't just for bodybuilders. It's an essential tool for daily independence.
You connect the biology to the action instantly. That connection is vital. Because if you wait until the end, strength training just sounds like generic advice we've all heard a million times.
But if you pair it with the suitcase,
it becomes the solution to a specific, visceral problem.
Exactly. Context creates urgency.
Okay, let's move to our final critique block, the depth of emotional resonance. It seems like the transition to the emotional side of aging feels, well, abrupt, almost disconnected from the physiological focus.
Yeah, it reads like 2 separate drafts were just stapled together. From 90% of the piece, we're on this purely biological track.
percentages, weights, fluid levels, then boom, in the last 10%, Emma Sinbren says, caring for older adults is emotional.
It's a total bifurcation. It implies that science happens in the body and feelings happen at the end of the article. But that's not how aging works. The physical decay is what causes the emotional response.
And I think there's a real risk there. By focusing only on the biology for so long, you might alienate the very reader who's looking for that emotional connection. The suggestion is to weave that theme of emotional resilience throughout the entire piece. Don't save it for the summary.
So frame the physical changes as events that require emotional support as they happen.
As they happen, yes.
Let's go back to the suitcase example again. We talked about the mechanics of muscle loss. How do we layer in the emotion there?
You have to acknowledge the psychological toll. When you describe the inability to lift the suitcase, don't just talk about muscle fibers. You can explicitly state, this decline in muscle mass is often accompanied by a sharp sense of frustration and a fear of losing independence.
You fuse the emotion to the science.
Right. It validates what the aging person is actually feeling in that moment.
That is so much more powerful. What about the organ shrinkage and the breathlessness? The current draft uses it as a setup for a joke.
So instead, you connect that breathlessness directly to the idea of patience from the conclusion. You explain that biological slowing, like running out of breath, it requires the caregiver to physically slow their own pace. That's where emotional care actually lives.
It's in the awkward silence while you wait for someone to catch their breath.
That's it. That's a great insight. It turns patience from some abstract virtue into a concrete, behavioral necessity. It shows you how to be patient.
Even the summary at the end needs a rewrite to reflect this fusion. Right now, it just separates the physical and emotional points.
It separates them again. It should be a compound bot, something like, physiological changes like water loss are inevitable, but their impact is mitigated through both medical care and emotional connection. It proves the two are linked.
This really brings us back to the writer's core intention, doesn't it? They clearly want to make a scary topic palatable.
They do. It's the old spoonful of sugar approach, but the sugar is so thick and synthetic that you can't even taste the medicine anymore. The story of the aging body, the literal shrinking of the self, is inherently dramatic. It's profound. It doesn't need cartoons.
In fact, the cartoons might be engaging the wrong audience entirely. Someone clicking on an article with body composition science in the title is probably ready for the facts.
They don't need to be coddled. I honestly suspect if this writer just stripped away the fictional brunch, just deleted the characters, but kept the voice warm and direct, the piece would instantly be 10 times stronger.
More shareable, too.
Way more shareable. I'd send a clear, compassionate article about organ shrinkage to a friend. I would not send them a skit about Grandpa New Zealand wiping away a pretend tear.
It's about trust. When you present data on kidney filtration rates, you're asking the reader to trust you as an expert. When you follow it with a joke,
you signal that maybe you're not taking this all that seriously, which in turn makes the reader take you less seriously.
So really, the theme of our feedback today is about stripping away the artifice. Let the strong core material shine. The writer has done the hard work. They have the stats.
Now they just need to trust that those stats are interesting enough on their own. The biology provides all the drama you need.
Okay, to recap for the writer, we've got 4 distinct areas to attack. First, align the tone. The stats are serious, the delivery needs to match. So lose the emojis and the sitcom directions.
Second, rethink that narrative vehicle. The character names are a distraction. Simplify them, or better yet, remove the fictional frame and just speak directly to the reader.
Third, integrate the advice. Don't hoard the solutions. Pair every scary statistic immediately with its behavioral fix. Problem, solution. Problem, solution.
And finally, weave in the emotion. Don't tack it on at the end. Embed the emotional reality of aging into the description of the physical decline itself.
The raw material here is just excellent. The research is done. Now it's about trusting that the truth is enough.
I would love to see a version of this that is purely voice-driven. Just cut the brunch. Give us the science and the soul, straight up, submit that, and let's see how it lands.
We invite the listener to take this feedback, try a draft without the characters, and submit it again. We'd love to see how the impact shifts when the data is allowed to breathe.
Definitely. Keep writing.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.